Ignite is an ongoing series of speedy presentation. Each speaker gets only 5 minutes and 20 slides that auto-advance every 15 seconds.
So tonight I'm going to talk about the data singularity is here. We've all heard about the singularity, but the singularity is far away. In the last few decades we've been thinking a lot about data, the last few weeks, few years, and what's really been happening, I think, if you look back, for a long time people have been telling stories and exchanging data. And they've been doing it the way that I'm doing here today. Data travels at the speed of speech, and that's effective and that works. And data is also stored on paper. It was stored on paper historically for many years. This is the Library of Alexandria. And you can store all of the books in the Library of Alexandria on a couple of thumb drives. But if you had to point to the beginning of the data singularity starting, you might look at the year 1792. This is when the Schaff brothers developed a telegraph. The first telegraph was a visual telegraph. And this is when data began moving at the speed of light. People and machines communicating and then sending more data to people. But as a predecessor to the telephone, we had to have people involved. We had telephone operators that were mediating these transactions, mediating the flow of data. And so that adds a little bit of friction to these information read-write loops that are a big part of our lives. And if you look at these loops, and we see them all around us with telephones and cash registers and our GPS-enabled devices, people and paper have been a big part of that, but something's changing in the last few decades, in the last few years, is that people and paper are beginning to get excised from these loops. And when you remove people and paper from these loops, and you replace them with other things, such as, instead of telephone operators, we have Cisco, wait for it, Cisco routers. And instead of storing our data on papyrus scrolls in the Library of Alexandria, we have ever exponentially decreasing in cost disk space. And so, as a result of these trends, as a result of these exponential trends, Metcalfe's law, Moore's law, all coming together, it creates more frictionless information read-write loops. And this is what I like to call, very sensationally and probably incorrectly, the data singularity. So machines are talking to each other in these pipelines of servers with no people involved. And they're talking faster and faster. These logs are being released and these pulses are being given off by all the sensors we have on us, these splimes that we carry around with us. But there's a hitch. At the end of these loops are still people. People are still, until the real singularity shows up, people are listening. And stocks are traded algorithmically, but companies are not yet. And so the challenge of the data age is to take all of this data, take all these log files, this massive amplification event of data, and turn it into something that our ears and our eyes can make sense of. And so I have a few ideas of how we can do that. One is we can filter our data. If you think about it, Google and Foursquare and Twitter are really just filters for this massive amount of data that's floating around us. They're a way for us to just see some portion of that data stream that makes sense to us. We can also crunch the data. It's sort of like digestion, but credit scores and cholesterol numbers that we all think of ourselves as just a statistic sometimes, but truthfully, those numbers actually mask a huge amount of complexity underneath. We can model our data. I like to think that statistics is the grammar of data science. And it's a way that we can take these massive mountains of data and convert them into something much more simpler that we can understand. And so, ultimately, we need to think of ways to get data human-sized. We need to human-size this massive amplification event of data and turn it into something that we can communicate to our eyes and ears. The highest capacity channel we've got are our eyes, and that's why data visualization is so critical. This is a gorgeous visualization done by Aaron Coblin showing flight patterns in the United States. Data visualization is a fourth technique that you can take and attack big data with. But ultimately, the question begs, who can restore people to their rightful place in these information read-write loops? Not everywhere, but at the termini. Who's got the ability and the tools and the know-how to do it? Well, I venture to say it's the future belongs to the data scientists. And guys like this one, if I can find this kid, I'll hire him. Guys like this, are capable of taking these tools and helping create the reduction events that will go against this amplification event and ultimately help take all of this massive amounts of data around us and reduce them down to stories that we can communicate between people like I am doing tonight. Thanks very much.